Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After suffering numerous robberies, a sadistic doctor plans his revenge against the next criminal who tries to steal his car. Today we will recap the story of the 2019 movie, 4x4. While walking down a quiet street, Chiro Bermudez spots a 4x4 vehicle that apparently has no alarm. Therefore, the car becomes an easy target. In that neighborhood, crime became such a serious problem that residents had to further strengthen the security of their homes. The place is surrounded by security cameras scattered everywhere, but that's not enough to intimidate Chiro. After breaking into the vehicle, the criminal removes the stereo and keeps the object inside his backpack. Then he finds a pair of sunglasses and decides to keep them. Before leaving, Chiro still leaves a gift for the millionaire, who owns that vehicle. After wetting the back seats in the worst possible way, the man hides to avoid being seen by the pedestrians who pass by. When the street is empty again, he tries to open the car door, and that's when his problems begin. As much as Chiro tries, he is not able to open any of the 4 doors of the vehicle. Then he tries to open the trunk, but again to no avail. Chiro's kicks at the windows are completely useless. While rummaging through the trunk, he finds a tire iron and uses the tool to break the glass. However, nothing happens. Desperate, Chiro rips the trim from one of the doors and sticks his arm inside, in order to unlock the car. However, all the thief manages to do is cause a deep cut on his arm. He then tries to destroy the carpet looking for a way out, but soon finds that it will be impossible to escape there. As a last attempt to escape, he decides to take the gun that was stored in his backpack and shoot the windshield. What he didn't realize is that the bullet would come back and hit his leg. Chiro is bewildered by the noise of the shot, and the wound caused leaves him speechless. A few seconds later, when he becomes aware of what has just happened, the criminal removes his shirt and uses it to stop the bleeding. Despite the attack, the glass remains intact. A woman passes by the car and Chiro tries to get her attention. The man stares and knocks at the window as she applies her lipstick, then leaves. Apparently, it is impossible for an outsider to hear or see what is going on inside that vehicle. Chiro starts screaming desperately and honks the horn, but nothing works. So far, the criminal has no idea who locked him up in that cage. All he knows is that he is in great danger, as the person who captured him has done a thorough job of preventing the invader from finding a way to escape. Frightened, the man takes his cell phone and calls his wife. However, as Chiro is unlucky that day, his cell phone battery runs out without him being able to complete the call. In the face of this, he loses the will to fight. After drinking the rest of the soda that was stored in a bottle, the man sits in the backseat, along with his own dirt, and decides to wait until someone comes to rescue him. His only company is a cricket who, like him, is trapped in that car. 24 hours passed and no one found him. Chiro wakes up dying of thirst and licks a few drops of water that were running from the window to try to hydrate himself. He returns the stereo and turns on some music to cheer himself up as he tries to destroy the vehicle's door. At that moment, the thief receives a call through the device. Suspicious, he decides to answer it. In doing so, Chiro is welcomed by Dr. Enrique Ferrari, his incarcerator. The man informs that he is a widower and was born in Quilmes 60 years ago. Counting all the times his possessions were taken, this is the 29th time he has been robbed. But this time, he decided to do it differently. The gynecologist installed an alarm connected to his cell phone. When someone gets into the car, he manages to lock the doors through his phone. By doing this, it becomes impossible for the person to be able to open the vehicle from the inside. The only way for Chiro to get out is to use the key, which Enrique has. The doctor also says that the car is completely armored and soundproof. In addition, the windows are polarized, which prevents anyone outside from seeing the criminal. Enrique says that, during his childhood, he lived in a middle-class family and, in his time, the doors of the houses were open without anything bad happening. Finally, the man asks Chiro what he would do if he caught his son stealing. The criminal claims not to know, so the doctor hangs up. Chiro is enraged and says he will take Henrique's life as soon as he is free. At that moment, the air conditioning is activated remotely and the thief takes the opportunity to cool off. However, within seconds, the place starts to freeze. The man tries to turn off the device, but the vehicle does not obey his commands. He puts his shirt on again in an attempt to warm up his body. Then Chiro rips off a piece of his pants to stop the wound and uses the car mat and pieces of paper to cover the air vents. Hours later, when he is almost freezing, the temperature of the vehicle begins to soften again and the criminal receives another call. When answering the call, Enrique asks the same question. He asks what Chiro would do if he found his son stealing, and the man replies, again, that he doesn't know what he would do. Then, Enrique tells about the day his daughter's house was invaded. As the woman drove her car into the garage, 2 burglars appeared and took all the money and valuables. Not satisfied, They still spent 3 hours pointing a revolver at the head of Henrique's grandson, a 5-year-old boy. After that, the doctor's daughter decided to take her family and move to Barcelona in search of greater security. After Enrique tells this story, the call is ended and a police car approaches the car. A spark of hope lights up in Ciro's heart, as he believes he will be rescued by the police. An officer gets out of the vehicle and examines the car. Meanwhile, the man screams and knocks on the windows. Still, the guard does not detect the presence of anyone inside and only issues a parking ticket. That afternoon, Ciro sees the rain falling outside as he suffers from thirst. Enrique calls him again and asks what his name, surname and ID number are. In exchange for this information, the man would receive water. To avoid losing his life, the criminal decides to follow his jailer's instructions and the doctor asks him to check the wash hose in the back of the vehicle. Ciro takes the bottle and manages to drink some dirty water. His big problem now is hunger. If this continues, the man is in serious danger of dying of starvation. The next morning, the man is still committed to his mission to destroy the door. However, he is weak and injured, so he knows he won't be able to get out of there alone. He tells Enrique that he had a fever due to a gunshot wound that he accidentally inflicted on his leg. The doctor asks about the state of the wound and turns on the heater while talking about his day. Enrique says that morning, he went to get the results of his exam and discovered that his cancer is spreading throughout his body. If all goes well, the doctor will have a little more than a year to live. While the man tells details about the 28 robberies he suffered, Ciro breaks out in a sweat and soon passes out. When he wakes up, he's convinced he doesn't have much time to live. Hunger is so great that the thief decides to eat a sheet of paper, which he took from a book, to fill his stomach. His biggest fear was that his body would be dumped somewhere and his family would never know what happened to him. So, the criminal begins to customize the entire interior of the car, in order to give a clue that he was there to anyone who eventually finds the vehicle. In order not to die of dehydration, Ciro begins to collect the liquid for his own body and drinks it back. Not even in his worst nightmares, the man could have imagined that he would live in such a deplorable state. That afternoon, another guy shows up to try to break into the 4x4 vehicle. However, before he succeeds in the crime, 2 men approach and start beating him up. Pedestrians walking nearby unite to beat up the thief, who has not even managed to complete the robbery. Quickly, the police appear and take him to the police station. At night, Ciro is so hungry that he thinks about eating the cricket that has been keeping him company for the last few days. However, he decides to let him live. After all, the insect is in as precarious a situation as he is. Hours later, he is woken up by a new call from Henrique. The man says he is in a good mood and informs him that he has an alfajor hidden in the back of the brake. Immediately, Ciro runs to get the candy and desperately devours it. Before the doctor hangs up the phone, the thief asks for more water, as well as a cigarette. With nothing to do, he observes the habits of the residents of the neighborhood and notices a certain pattern that repeats itself every day. With that knowledge, if he were free, Ciro would be able to clean up everyone who lives on that street. During the observations, the thief realizes that the neighborhood beggar, who the day before was eating 2 rotten apples, had just found a slice of pizza in the garbage. As he was hungry, Ciro is jealous of that lucky guy. Later, the criminal continues working on his plan to breach the car door and finally manages to fulfill this mission. The problem is that the hole he manages to make, using the tool he found in the trunk, is so small that even though Ciro screams with all his might, it's almost impossible for anyone to hear him. In another of his calls, Enrique appears with news about Irina and Lionel, Ciro's wife and son. Hearing this, the man starts to think his family is in trouble, but to his surprise, Enrique gives him some good news. The doctor claims that he handed over $150,000 in cash to Irina, on the pretext that her husband played the lottery and won. He even took the liberty of suggesting that the woman buy a house to avoid paying rent and, with the rest of the money, invest in her son's education. Enrique says that Ciro doesn't deserve the family he has. The man says he got the criminal's file from a friend of the police and discovered that he had already taken a person's life. Ciro tries to explain himself and claims he only did it to defend himself during a robbery. The tire store owner took a knife to attack him and Ciro shot him. Finally, he claims that he has already paid for this mistake, spending years of his life in prison. Enrique says that Ciro was the chosen one and is now sentenced to a new punishment. That night, the man cannot sleep. He knows he will remain a prisoner for a long time, so he decides to help his cricket friend get his freedom and wishes him good luck. Later, accidentally, while pressing the ignition button, Ciro manages to start the car. He fastens his seatbelt, reverses and causes a purposeful accident. In this way, the thief manages to break the window glass and free himself. He trudges through the streets until he reaches the nearest convenience store. Quickly, Ciro opens the freezer and drinks a bottle of water. Then he grabs 2 hamburgers and sits down to eat. At this time, the security guard approaches the criminal and orders him to leave. Chiro then draws his gun and shoots the man in the chest. At that moment, the thief wakes up and realizes that it was all a dream. Tired of suffering and without hope of being released from that cage, the boy points the gun at his chin and plans to take his own life. However, he is interrupted by a call. Chiro begs Enrique to allow him to see his son again, but the doctor denies the request. The thief then claims he will take his own life, but his weapon fails and his plan fails again. Seconds later, Enrique orders Chiro to look ahead and the car's headlights come on, revealing the kidnapper's true face. The doctor gets in the car and sprays the vehicle with flavoring to lessen the stench that was inside. Enrique takes the gun, lights a cigarette and puts it in Ciro's mouth so he can relax while the doctor analyzes his wound. The man screams in pain as the doctor rips the bullet out of his leg. As the man answers a patient's call, Chiro takes the gun and shoots the doctor before escaping. However, the madman didn't suffer any great damage, so Enrique remains alive and goes after the criminal. However, before the man was captured again, a policewoman who was doing the local patrol appears and Enrique is caught in the act. He tries to explain that he is punishing the thief who broke into his car and still claims to be helping the police to do their duty. However, the officer points the gun at the doctor and insists that he release the man. 2 hours later, the situation remains the same, as Enrique refuses to release Chiro and assures him that he only wants one thing: to ensure that justice is done. The man takes advantage of the presence of journalists and onlookers on duty to take advantage of the situation. He asks the audience what he should do with that criminal and states that it is those people who will decide whether the doctor should eliminate him or release him. When the cops realize that people are supporting the doctor, they decide to call Amadio to interfere in that case. Meanwhile, Enrique is next to his car with a gun pointed at the man's neck. By this time, Chiro has given up fighting. The man is passed out and unconsciously waits for his life to be decided by the hands of the man who put him in that trap. The doctor cannot accept that a thief can break into his house, steal his car and, when caught, cannot be punished. When the retired negotiator arrives at the scene, he informs the doctor that he is there to help him. Enrique then says that the best way to help him and the entire population is to enforce the law. Amadio then says that he understands Henrique's anger and, like him, all the other people present at that place are also angry. However, that doesn't get anyone anywhere. The doctor could eliminate that man, but that makes no difference to the world, as there are thousands of other criminals out there. Taking that young man's life will only make Enrique throw his life and career in the trash. Even after hearing this, the doctor does not back down. He claims that even if his attitude doesn't change the world, at least he's doing something. Otherwise, the only option would be to leave the country, as his daughter did. Amadio then claims that Enrique has already done his part, since, apparently, Chiro has learned his lesson. He asks the man to let the criminal go, but instead the doctor turns again to the onlookers who were nearby. He asks who has been robbed there despite having bars on their windows and advanced security systems in their homes. At this point, most people raise their hands. In order to gain Enrique's trust, the police negotiator offers him some water. With the doctor's permission, after getting rid of all the weapons, a policewoman walks towards him and hands him a bottle. Before she could leave, Enrique leans over and kisses the back of the policewoman's hand. After drinking a little, the man passes the bottle to Chiro, who is extremely dehydrated. At that moment, Amadio approaches and asks, again, that Enrique release the man. He says that his wife has passed away and they have not had any children. Therefore, Amadio lives alone, as he has no relatives and few friends. Currently, he has to survive on his retiree salary, which is not much. The negotiator tells all this to explain that he has absolutely nothing to lose and says that, when all that is over, he wants to welcome Enrique to his house for a beer. At that time, the doctor thinks of his daughter and understands that she does not deserve to be remembered as the daughter of the doctor who took the life of a robber. This was not the memory the man wanted to leave behind before he left, so he decides to release Chiro and then gets into his car. At that moment, the criminal is received by the police and handcuffed. The people around can hardly believe that the doctor released that guy, who he had been holding for 5 hours. Chiro is taken into the car while the police try to arrest Enrique. Then, Amadio only sees the doctor's arm placing a countdown clock on the roof of the car. He quickly realizes that it is a bomb and asks the officers to step aside. Seconds later, the vehicle explodes and Enrique is incinerated. Everyone is perplexed by the outcome of that bizarre case, but Chiro breathes a sigh of relief knowing that he came out of the worst robbery of his life alive. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.